War bonds. If you have been enjoying the Secrets of the Storm DLC as much as I have, you may have come across this item. War bonds was one of 5 red items introduced in the Secrets of the Storm DLC, which was released in August of 2024, which at the time of making this video was only a couple weeks ago. This item is said to grant you the legendary power of earning 75 gold on stage start, with each stack giving you another 25 gold. It also mentions that it scales with difficulty and player level. Sounds too good to be true, doesn't it? Well, sadly, it appears that is actually the case. You see, item and game descriptions in Risk of Rain 2 have often been inaccurate or even outright misleading. For instance, Queen's Gland claims to spawn a beetle guard once every 30 seconds, which used to be the case, but it just kinda glitched out one day and started to spawn instantly, and it hasn't changed since. Plasma Shrimp only stacks an additional 40% total damage per stack, yet the in-game description claims it stacks by 50%. Everyone thought Deathmark was broken when it first came out, because the devs accidentally made the description claim that stacking Deathmark increased the damage of the debuff instead of the duration. There's dozens of other descriptions that are or were wrong, but you get the point, and that is that War Bonds was not spared from this. A correct description for War Bonds would be of the following. War Bonds yields 50 gold, plus an additional 1.5 gold, plus 1.5 gold per item stack, multiplied by the survivor's level at the start of every stage. Scales over time. Quite the downgrade from its original description, and still a bit of a mouthful, but we at least have something we can work with. So, how much value are we realistically getting out of this item? Well, for starters, the biggest value out of this item is that you don't have to put any effort into getting results. Gorestone requires you to kill enemies for a chance to get money. Roll of Pennies requires you to take damage from an enemy. War Bonds may be 50 gold, but you're guaranteed that 50 gold at the start of every stage. 50 gold is at least enough to get one of the options on the list shown on screen. This can be useful in runs that really aren't going anywhere, as sometimes you have such a bad run that killing even the weakest of enemies proves to be a challenge. Sometimes you're just one royal capacitor away from greatness, and War Bonds can help you reach that. When looking at the scaling of the survivor's level with this item, we see that at level 17 you finally spawn with base 75 gold, meaning that 3 chests are now on the table instead of 2. At this player level, War Bonds actually reaches what is supposed to be the base value as shown on the item description, as stacking the item at level 17 also gives you a base 25 per stack, close to the original description's value. Now, you may be wondering why I've been only talking about the base values and ignoring the fact that the item, alongside chests, have more gold tied to their name as the run progresses. This is because almost all money-related things are tied to the single value called the difficulty coefficient. The difficulty coefficient is what the world revolves around in Risk of Rain 2. The amount of credits given to the enemy director per second, how fast enemies level up, what bosses spawn, money on kill, how much chests cost. These core functions of the game all work around this number, but what exactly defines this number? Well, there's a lot of factors, and I don't want to branch this off into its own video, but it's all based around the following. Number of players, difficulty selected, stages completed, and game time passed. All of these work in one giant formula that pops out the difficulty coefficient. As for money scaling, base values are multiplied by the coefficient raised to the power of 1.25, meaning whatever amount chests are multiplied of, the base value of War Bonds is multiplied by the same amount. I made a calculator that can determine exactly how much gold you will get from War Bonds at stage start, which you can take a look at in the description below. Aside from some quirky conveniences, War Bonds really only has a couple special cases I can really think about, that being instant access using a remote caffeinator or the crowdfunder. At level 1, a survivor is able to access a caffeinator 10 times before running out of funds and having to kill any enemies. This can be useful when a build is heavily made around fireworks, instantly giving the user the funds they need to start killing enemies, which will then generate enough funds for future caffeinator usage. Crowdfunder, however, is a bit of a different story, you see. Earlier I mentioned that almost All money-related things are tied to the difficulty coefficient. The crowdfunder was quirky and decided that it wanted to be instead tied to the player's level, where each bullet costs 1 gold plus an additional X amount of gold, where X is the player's level plus 1, then divided by 4. At level 10, each bullet costs 3 gold, and by level 21, each bullet costs 6 gold. The rate at which crowdfunder goes up in price outscales the base rate at which War Bonds does, but War Bonds counters this by generating more funds through means of the difficulty coefficient. This isn't a video on this equipment, but I will say that the crowdfunder makes a very poor early game equipment due to its scaling, but by late game it can do a lot with very little. War Bonds can be that little needed for the crowdfunder to take off come late game, and can even come in clutch alongside some Brittle Crowns for low range survivors in early game or up against Voidlight. If I were to put War Bonds in a tier list, I would put it, well, at F tier. Look, I tried to give it some love, but it really doesn't have much going for it. I'll say it's at least high F tier since it does something, Aegis, but if I see that item drop, I'm double checking the entire stage for Recycler before picking it up. Gore's Tome and Pennies are able to help you as soon as you pick them up, and you only really need income items in the early game when enemies are scarce and chests are plentiful. That's all for this video. I hope to continue making videos in this format, though with the DLC having recently dropped, it is going to take a while for me to really grasp how these items function throughout the game. If you would like to support me on my journey, feel free to drop a comment or stop over at my Twitch, that being twitch.tv/gamerh_0st, where I am very active every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Lastly, if War Bonds or any recently covered item is changed over the next few patches, I'll try to update this video to keep it relevant, as there is a good chance the devs might change some things. You never know. That's all for now. Thanks for watching.